Happy Friday, wine lovers! It's Stephanie Miskew, certified sommelier, author of The Glamorous Gourmet, and your own personal wine witch. And welcome to my weekly Facebook live show, Wines of the Week. Every Friday, I'm here with you at 5 p.m. to kick off happy hour and share some great wines that'll hopefully inspire you for the weekend. Or maybe even through the next week if I do my job right. So thanks for joining me on this fabulous Friday, October 27th, for a special Halloween edition of the show, in case you couldn't tell, right? And I've got my little wine witchy skeleton hands here for you, and I've got my glamorous skeleton girls back there as my co-hosts today. So I hope that's cool with you. So what can I say? I love Halloween. It's like my favorite holiday. But in case you're worried that today's show is going to feature a lot of novelty, crappy wine, mediocre wines, never fear. Today I've got some wonderful, delicious, affordable Halloween-themed wines from some wonderful, well-respected winemaking families that I know you're going to love. I'm excited to share these wines with you today. They're really delicious, and if you're going to or throwing your own Halloween-themed party or costume party, these wines are great, so I'm happy to recommend them to you. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you can hear me, please go ahead and just either in the comment section, let me know where you're watching from, or throw up an emoji. I think I have some comments already. Let me pull up the video here. The computer is hard to work with the glove on the hand, so bear with me for a minute. Oh, there we go. All right. Do any of you get as into Halloween as I do? Is anyone out there a total freak about it like me? What can I say? I love it. All right, there we go. And we've got Jennifer. Happy Halloween, my dear. Thanks for joining. And Monica, thanks for the pink hair. And before we get started, I have to thank Karen Flieger, my hairdresser for years. And for the past year, I've been talking about going pink, like the whole head pink. I've done pink streaks, pink clip-ins, pink everything. And I'm like, you know what? For this Halloween, I'm just going to do the whole head. So you'll get a better view next week. But yeah, like I love it with the hat. I had the hat on earlier for a news segment, so I'm just keeping it on. Because us gals know what the hat can do to hat head and all that jazz. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And also, of course, if there's something in your glass you'd like to share with me right now, please go ahead and mention that in the comment section, always. So before we dive into our tasting, and today, well, we normally, for those of you who have joined us before, we usually taste 4 wines. Today we have a bonus. These are just fun wines. They're not going to be, contemplative wines that we're going to think about a lot, but they are delicious and they are super fun. So again, we're going to run through 5 of them today. And before we dive in, I always like to share first-time viewers our super simple format. We do the same format every time. Every Friday, it's 4 wines. Today's an exception. But I taste through 4 wines, and the benefit of doing this live is that you can either make comments or ask questions live that I can answer right there on the spot, which is so great. I usually keep these to about 30 to 45 minutes, somewhere in there, depending on how many questions and all that jazz. And so that's about it. Also, if you happen to be watching this video after the live broadcast, please go ahead and comment and ask questions as if you were watching. Wow, I'm just noticing the screen's really white. But if you are watching this after the live broadcast, please go ahead and comment and ask questions as if you were watching it live, because I do keep tabs on these for weeks afterwards, and I'd be happy to get back to you on any comments or questions that you do have. So I think that's about it, and I think we've got some other folks joining in. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I always like to check before I jump into the tasting, just to make sure everyone can hear me. So if you can hear me, just throw up a little emoji. Awesome. Thank you so much. Ooh, Allie, hey, great to see you, gal. Thanks for joining. All right, so like I said, we got 5 wines, so I'm going to jump right into the tasting with our first little wine from Chile. And it is quite delicious. I have to say this morning, everyone was loving it at the station. And you know what? I'm going to flip the screen, so I'm going to remove my one skeleton glove for right now. I flipped the screen just so you can see the bottle better. Let's see. Boop. All right, so our first wine is it's from Concha y Toro, and it's the Casillero del Diablo Devil's Collection White Blend. I mean, what more perfect name for a wine for Halloween, right? Casillero del Diablo. This line of wines from them actually got its name because about 100 years ago, people kept stealing wines from the Concha y Toro cellar, and the best wines kept disappearing mysteriously and no one could figure out why. So they started the rumor that the devil lived in the cellar, and the rumor spread and they never had another bottle go missing again. So I guess that's a good rumor to spread. But anyway, the name stuck. And again, this is the Devil's Collection White. It's a delicious blend of Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and Gewürztraminer, which I have to say, it really gives the wine a beautiful, like, floral spice note that you normally wouldn't have if you were just blending Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay together. But I've already conveniently poured myself some here. But again, this winery was founded in 1883 by Don Melchor de Santiago Concha y Toro and his wife. So it's been around a very long time. They make just great, reliable, delicious wines, and this line in particular. And yeah, the Devil's Collection, it's fun, easy drinking, meant to be consumed young. This wine isn't going to get any better with age. So the minute you buy it, you should drink it. And again, it's got the screw cap closure, which I'm a huge fan of. So again, it's a great, great choice for Halloween. You don't need to carry any corkscrews with you. Just pop the top and you're good to go. So now is the part in our tasting where I'm gonna I taste through each wine. I like to use the 6 S's of tasting, which are see, swirl, sniff, sip, swish, and then savor or spit. Because it's Friday, I'm savoring along with the rest of you. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. So you can see this wine is a beautiful, just pale lemon yellow color. It's got a little bit of color to it, probably from the Chardonnay and the Gewürz, but looks just like we would expect it to. It's yeah, it's even like a light gold color. But it's beautiful and nothing floating in it, no browning. It looks like we would expect a young, beautiful white blend to look. So now I'm gonna roll into swirl and sniff. And for those of you joining us for the first time, swirl essentially turns the volume up on the aromas of the wine. So when we're evaluating a wine, it just gives us a better insight into what is in that glass. So I'm gonna swirl and then roll right into the sniff. I don't think I've ever done this with a witch's hat on before, but... Oh, and I'm telling you, it's so fragrant. It's very, gosh, it's just wonderful. And I don't know if I mentioned the wine. It's from the Casablanca Valley in Chile, and which is known for doing white grapes beautifully. And I have to tell you, the aromas, it's definitely got the apple thing from the Chardonnay and the kind of grassy, citrusy thing from the Sauv Blanc. But that Gewürztraminer really adds that, like, a ginger spice floral thing that is just really beautiful, actually. So after smelling it, I definitely want to proceed and taste. So now I'm going to sip and swish. And for those of you interested in learning more about wine, it's good when you sip the wine to swish it around your mouth. That way you really get a good sense of what the wine is about. You get a good insight into its texture. So by all means, sip and swish. Yeah, and it's because it's stainless steel fermented, and all that means is the wine is crisp, fruity, and fresh. It's got a bright acidity and a beautiful complexity for $15. This wine is $15 a bottle, folks. What a deal! It's so much personality for 15 bucks. It's a steal. I usually also feature steals and splurges, and this is definitely a steal for sure. At 15 bucks, our Casillero del Diablo Reserva Devil's Collection White Blend from Chile's Casablanca Valley. Does anyone watching, are you fans of Chilean wine? Or have you been to the region? Anyway, yeah, that is just lovely. In fact, I'm gonna take another sip. Oh, and Deborah, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you. I know we've been catching up on last week's video, but it's great to see you. And Allie, great to see you too. And hola, Jim. What a pleasure. It's great to see you here. Oh no, Tom's got another joke for us. A limbo champion walks into a bar. Good one. Got disqualified. You so funny. That's awesome. Yes, and we love new viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening. It's a pleasure. So that's our wine number 1, folks. Again, I hate to pour it out, but I don't want to keep you. I know it's Friday. I know you got places to go and people to see. So we're going to roll right into wine number 2, which is a delightful. Now we're moving from Chile and we're heading back to California. And in fact, actually all the rest of the wines we're tasting now are from California, but different regions. And I also wanted to highlight, well, I'll get to that. But so this wine is the J. Lohr October Night Chardonnay from the Arroyo Seco AVA in Monterey. And just from, wow, talk about a pioneering winemaking family. Jerry Lohr was purchasing vineyards in the 1970s in Monterey. And again, just what a wonderful family. They make beautiful wines. And it's just nice to see these people who really took that chance back when no one was sure which regions grew anything well, and, you know, committed and have been there this whole time. And again, they make beautiful wines. But I thought October Night, I mean, perfect. You could even drink this all October or all November, depending on how much you like it. But I think for those, whereas the last wine was a good choice for people who like Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Grigio, this is the choice for those of you who are your oaky, toasty Chardonnay fans. So this wine, it's really nice. So let's go ahead and jump into our tasting. Da-da-da-da. Yeah, it has been too long, Jim. Thrilled to see you. All right, so we'll jump into our tasting. And first we're going to look at the wine. And again, there's so much you can tell about a wine just by looking at it. So because this wine is definitely a little darker than our first wine, I would say. It's definitely Chardonnay that has a little bit of oak on it. You can definitely tell that from looking. It looks a little more golden to me than it might to you, but generally oaked whites are a little darker in color than non-oaked. So if you're ever blind tasting a wine, and hey, you never know when that's going to happen, that's a tell right away that, yep, that's dark, meaning the wine is either an older wine or it has some oak treatment on it. So, but I want to proceed to swirl and sniff. And like right off the bat, that's so different from our Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and Gewurz blend. This is 100% Chardonnay, and the nose is all like toasty oak, vanilla, all of these beautiful, and baking spices, like all of these notes that are infused into the wine from French oak barrels are what I'm getting off of this, in addition to citrus and apple. But you can definitely tell just by smelling the wine that it is oaky and delicious for those of you who like these types of wines. And I do, hey, when done well, I'm a fan too. And I actually I'll wait till after I taste it to tell you what I said about it earlier, but I'm going to roll right into sip and swish. Yeah. And man, on the palate, couldn't be more different from our first wine. The first wine was like just bright, crisp, fruity. This is like definitely medium to full-bodied white. And it just kind of coats the palate with the beautiful, it's got more of a viscosity because it's higher alcohol. But again, it's the baking spices and vanilla. And like, you know, if you've ever baked apples with like cinnamon and butter, that's what this wine is like, except it's not sweet. But I was calling it earlier, it's essentially October or fall in a glass. It's like everything, all your favorite flavors of fall are in this wine. So again, if you like to bake or you like that kind of the baked apple thing, I think, or you just like oaked shards, I think you're really gonna love this. But again, very nice. Very, very nice. Are any of you watching? I'm gonna ask you a question. Are you fans of oaked or unoaked white wines? So this would be our oaked white wine, and the wine before would be an example of our unoaked wines. That would be your Pinot Grigio, your Sauvignon Blanc. Those are unoaked. So if you care to share in the comments section, I would greatly appreciate it. So, hey there, folks. I see more people are joining us. I know, I wish someone needs to invent this smell-o-vision thing. Come on, Apple, get on the stick here, because I would love to just hold this up and be able for you all to smell it. But anyway, so that is a winner, and that was our J. Lore October Night Arroyo Seco Chardonnay from Monterey, California. That's our white splurge at $25 a bottle. So a little pricey, but you're really getting a nice wine. And again, and while I picked these because they all have kind of a Halloween theme, you know, I would drink any one of these any night of the week, to be honest. They're that delicious. All right, so we started with our Concha y Toro Casillero del Diablo white blend, and we just finished our J. Lore Chardonnay. So now we're moving on to our 3 reds. For those of you who are red fans, oh, Jim's, hold on, I just want to go back to that question. Jim says oaked, but it depends on what I'm serving. And I love that point, because it really does depend on the context, right? What you're eating, you know, who you're with. Is, you know, I totally agree with you on that. You're right. And oaked doesn't go with everything. Unoaked wines are a little more versatile food-wise, but that was a great observation. And Glades, am I saying that right? Says oaked. Awesome. Heidi likes both styles. Absolutely. I love that. Allie likes both. Awesome. Good. I like that. We've got some versatility in this group. Awesome. And it really does depend, you know, like this time of year, I loved an oaked chard. Again, it's got all those notes of fall that we love. So let's move on to our reds. And I love, actually, yeah, am I doing this one next? Yeah. Hold on. Let me just make sure I didn't lose my spot. I think hold on, folks. Yeah, I skipped one. All right, because this label is really cool. I don't want you to miss it. All right, so next, is our Chronic Cellars Purple Paradise. Yup, that's your Halloween wine, folks, right? If you're a hardcore, like the scariness factor and that whole aspect of Halloween, Chronic Cellars Purple Paradise from Paso Robles, 2014 vintage. Again, what is not to love about that label? It's awesome. And what's even better is what's in the bottle is also delicious. This is actually a wine made by 2 brothers, Josh and Jake Beckett, who grew up in Paso Robles, grew up, you know, working summers in the winemaking facility, rinsing barrels and doing all that grunt work. And they named their wine Chronic Cellars because chronic being the best grapes. They have all these connections to awesome grapes, and that's what they use to make their wines. And, you know, it's really cool to see kids like, you know, who come up in these regions use their connections and, you know, make really fun, delicious wines. They named it Purple because of the color, and Paradise because they say that's the way you feel when you drink it. And I have to agree, it's quite delicious. This wine, it's a blend of Petite Syrah, Grenache, Syrah, and Zinfandel. And yeah, it is yummy, from Paso Robles, which is a little further south than Monterey. Has anyone ever been out to California wine country and headed, like, you get to San Francisco and you head south rather than north? I know most of us tend to always head up to Napa and Sonoma and everything. But even, especially with the events recently, and while we all do want to go back to Napa, another really great region to explore is the Central Coast in Monterey and Paso Robles. They make some really beautiful wines that are worth exploring. So like our last wine, J. Lore, they make beautiful wines from that region. And we visited a couple years ago, and it was amazing. I would go back in a heartbeat. So let's go ahead and look at this red. I would call this, out of our 3 reds today, this is a little more medium bodied than full bodied, even though it's the Grenache kind of dominates for me. But you can see by looking at it, it's a really kind of brick garnet red color. It's not, yeah, it's definitely not purple. It's more of a garnet red. Looks just like I would expect it to look. Again, it's more translucent. Like a good judge of a red wine is, can you read through it? If you tilt the glass like this over a white paper with print and you can read through it, that generally means it can be a more medium bodied wine. and that the grapes are more thin-skinned. So I look at this, even though it says it's bigger grapes, bigger, I would expect it to be a little more fuller bodied, but anyway, it's still delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and swirl and sniff. I can't seem to stop swirling my wine anyway. And like right got on the nose, you get like a beautiful like red berries, kind of like a macerated cherry and balsamic thing going on. That's really nice. Well, yeah, strawberries too, for sure. This earthiness, that's really lovely. I'm going to roll right into sip and swish. Yeah, and especially when you're tasting red wines, to really get a sense about a wine's like tannins and acid, you gotta just like swish it all over your mouth. And I guess you don't have to be really exaggerated about it. I do it pretty covertly. But again, like this wine has a really nice acidity to it that automatically makes me like crave food. Like this would be like a great pizza wine, burger wine. Like it doesn't need anything fancy. It's just really tasty on its own, but I bet it would pair it well with a variety of foods. In fact, this morning I did a wine segment on our local NBC affiliate, and I brought my famous Halloween dish, which is a savory severed arm in marinara sauce. And it's got to be the most hideous looking thing, but it is the most delicious thing. We all ate the heck out of it once the segment was over. But the recipe for it is on my website. I'll link it up in the comment section after the show. But it's basically a butterflied flank steak filled with like cheese and breadcrumbs and dried cranberries. And then you roll that up and cover it with prosciutto. And you make the hand, it's a hamburger meat. You make a hand like, and the fingers and stuff. And you put prosciutto over that and you just bake it and it looks like burnt skin and you surround it with marinara sauce. It's hideous looking. If you look on my website, you'll see it, but it is so delicious. And I'm telling you, every party I bring it to, there's not a fingernail left of the thing. It's that good. So anyway, but this wine, I think this wine probably might have paired the best with it out of all the reds we tasted. So did I taste it yet? I can't remember. I'm going to go ahead and sip and swish again. Yeah, again, that beautiful acid. And on their own tasting notes, they say it's got a little hint of moto jacket, meaning leather. And it really does have like a nice leathery note to it. So for those of you who maybe like your wines a little more higher acid, a little more earthy, and a little more that leathery kind of thing rather than super fruit forward wines, you might like this wine a little better. It's very nice and lives up to its name, Purple Paradise, even though it might be closer to Garnet Paradise, but oh well, who cares? So any questions about this wine so far? And oh, there's Karen. Hey, cutie. Thanks, lady. I am just loving the hair. As if you can't tell. Thank you. And oh, Tom asks, where'd you get dem gloves? These gloves I got from Grandin Road. They're one of my favorite catalogs, websites for Halloween stuff. I got these glamorous skeleton gals back here from there, and the gloves are like have jewelry on them and stuff, so they're fun. I had to take the one off so I could operate the machinery, the technology. And I actually think I got the hat from there too a few years back, but I've had it for a while. It's pretty tall. But anyway, completes the Wine Witch ensemble. So anywho, so that's our first red. Yeah, so any questions about our wine so far? And again, I just like to remind folks, if you happen to be watching this video after the live broadcast, please go ahead and comment and ask questions as if you were watching it live, because I definitely will go back and answer your questions or respond to your comments, weeks after. So please jump in. I'd be happy to get back to you so you don't feel like you're watching alone. That's never fun. Yeah, I knew, Allie. I knew you would like that. Allie says, I love the moto jacket. Yep. Not only fashion conscious, but delicious too, right? What's not to love about that? Awesome. I know I've tasted it 4 times. This is what happens when I have a segment in the morning and then, hey, what can I say? All right. So our next bottle is delicious. If you're a Zin fan, buckle your seatbelts. This one is delicious, and it is the Hahn Family Wines Bone Shaker Zinfandel. It's awesome. I love the label. What I can't show you about the label right now is the label glows in the dark. And it really glows in the dark, like with a little bit of exposure to light. If I could turn one of those things off, you'd see it just turns like that really cool green color. But oh my God, it's so cool. And it's from the Lodi region of California. I'm calling that a steal too at $20 a bottle. The Purple Paradise was $15 again. But yeah, just a beautiful Zin. From Old Vines. This is Old Vine Zin. The vines are about 40 years old. And you might ask, so what does Old Vine mean and why is that important? Old vines produce, in fact, if you've ever visited a wine region and you've ever seen vines that are all like gnarled and bent over, like they're icky looking vines, but those are old vines and they don't produce a lot of fruit, but the fruit that they do produce is very concentrated and it produces wines with really great like depth. Anyway, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm really enjoying this wine. It's actually a blend. It's 81% Zin, 13% Petite Syrah, and 6% Cab. And again, it's from the Hahn family, who are so reliable and make so many wonderful wines. I've been using their wines in my classes for ages, but I've never had this wine, and I have to say, it is quite delicious. All right, so now let's go through our tasting. So you can see, compared to our last wine, this wine is purple. Like that is absolutely purple. There's might be a little reddish around the rim, but purple, there's no way you're reading through this wine, folks. Yeah, it is opaque and purple, just like we would expect a 2015 Old Vine Zin to be. So now I'm going to go ahead and swirl and sniff. Oh yeah, and that is all 100% dark fruit. That's black cherry and plum and blackberry and a little bit of spice. This is definitely not really earthy. This is way more fruit forward than our last wine. But lovely. So I'm going to roll into Sip and Swish. Yeah. Night and day between this wine and the last wine. This is very fruit forward. Does have a little bit of tannin, but not much. So if you're somebody who's not a fan of really tannic, astringent red wines, you would love this. It's all about the fruit. Again, that ripe blackberry, a little bit of blueberry going on, a little bit of spice they must use a little bit of oak. They didn't give that info, but definitely a little bit of oak, but not too much. It definitely lets the fruit shine. And again, yeah, like if you like blackberry pie or blueberry pie, it kind of has that note to it, but not sweet. It's fruity, but not sweet. So yeah, and the finish like lingers and you want it to. Like that is a really nice wine for $20 a bottle. That's delish. And the label glows in the dark. So what's not to love about that? Anyway. And for those of you watching, do you mostly prefer more fruity wines or do you prefer more earthy wines? If you want to tell me in the comment section, I would appreciate it. Jim says, LOL, I must have said something funny at some point. But and then Jim says, where can you find these wines? Not to promote, just wondering. No, good question. And I'm not sure is the answer, unfortunately. I would think these wines would be pretty widely available. Clearly, if you're here in South Florida, they might be. But especially the Concha y Toro wine would probably be easier to find. The J. Lohr is pretty readily available as well. I would even think the Hahn family wines would be pretty easy to find, but I don't know a particular store. So sorry, that's why I'm featuring 5, because you're bound to find, 2 or 3 of these at your local wine store, I would hope, given that is the week of Halloween. So sorry I don't have a better answer for you, but I do the best I can. All right, so now we are on our final wine of the tasting, and let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions. Yeah, and if you have questions at any time, go ahead and just pop in and I'll check before we leave, so no worries. Okay, so our next wine is from Napa, California, and it is the Van Duzer. I don't know if you can see that so well. Van Duzer Sorcery Cabernet Sauvignon. If I go like that, it says Sorcery right here in really cool lettering. Kind of Art Nouveau, actually. Cabernet Sauvignon, 2012 vintage. This is a bit of a splurge at $35 a bottle, but but let's keep in mind it's Napa fruit. And while Van Duzer, the company's mostly known for their Willamette Valley, you know, their Oregon Pinot Noirs and Chards, they do own land. In fact, the Thomas, who are the owners, originally bought property in Napa before they bought property in Oregon. So they have this wonderful little vineyard that they can source fruit from. And this is part of their specialty collection that, you know, is kind of like an addition to their main portfolio. And I'm telling you, this wine, this was such a nice surprise at $35 a bottle. They could charge a lot more for this wine. Oops, let me pour myself some first. There we go. But again, just lovely. It's 100% cab, which is rare because it's all from this, mostly from this one I think it's all from this. Yeah, 100% cab from the 4-acre Toma family vineyard in the Rutherford AVA. Only 584 cases are produced, so you might have a little trouble finding this one, but honestly, it would be worth looking for. It's quite special, and honestly, Napa cabs nowadays are so expensive, as we all know. That $35 is kind of a sweet spot to find a good value like this. So the wine spent 18 months in French oak barrels, 50% new, so not too crazy on the oak. And let's jump into our tasting. So we can see this wine is somewhere between our first two reds. We've got some garnet and some purple going on in this wine. It's a 2012. But it looks young. It looks very opaque. Again, you're not reading through this wine. But again, there's no browning around the edges, which would suggest the wine was really aged or exposed to heat. Nothing floating in it, which could suggest any number of things. But anytime, and actually that's an important thing, anytime you ever see a cork or bits of cork floating in a wine, don't think that means that a wine is bad or corked in any way. Always go ahead and try the wine before you pour it out or give up on it, because that's not what makes a wine corked. And I had this happen recently, which is why I wanted to mention it. So just because there's bits of cork floating in a wine, always taste it before you write it off. Okay, that's my lesson for the day. So all right, I think, oh good. All right, so let me jump into swirl and sniff. Oh my gosh, that is, I mean, that nose is just beautiful. That's red fruit. It's like red currant, a little bit of strawberry, a little bit of earth. Man, that is a beautiful nose for a cab. A little bit of graphite and a little bit of that earthiness that I love in a wine as well. So I definitely want to proceed to sip and swish. Yeah, and immediately, because our last two reds were blends, this one really highlights cab. And what is one of the most important things about cab is that it has a lot of tannin. For those of you who are tannin fanatics and just love the tannins, which you can tell if you've ever taken a sip of a red wine and it feels like all the moisture got sucked out of your mouth, that's tannin. It's very astringent. And right off the bat, this is tannic, but not overly so. It's very nicely balanced with the fruit. Yeah, that's lovely. It's got definitely a little chocolate note on the finish that I wasn't getting on the nose. Yeah, blue, well, definitely black and red fruit, I would say. And a little black pepper on the finish as well. That is delicious. In fact, let me take another sip. Yeah, that, again, that's the Van Duzer Sorcery Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa. It's a splurge, but a great value at $35 a bottle. So that one is definitely worth looking up. I'm going to take all the wines and post them on my website, if not tonight, tomorrow morning. If you do want to get updated about weekly events that I have now coming up, that season's getting in full gear, just message me your email address and I'd be happy to add you to my list. But that kind of wraps up our tasting for the day, our Halloween wines. I hope it has inspired you to try some of these wines. And if you go into your local wine store and you can't find these wines, ask them to order it. Oftentimes stores will go ahead and order wines for you. I know a lot of people don't know that, but they definitely will. And these guys, these are special. And even though they're not crazy expensive, they're great value wines, so you might want to seek them out. And Allie says, fun segment. I'll be watching more and learning more. Thank you, my dear. It's so good to see you here. And Jim says, thanks for the info. Great segment. You enjoy your weekend too, Jim. It was so great having you here this week. I really appreciate it. Oh, and Deb says, what was the second wine name? The Chardonnay. Great question. That was our J. Lore, and I'll even show you the label again, my dear. That was our J. Lore October Night Chardonnay from Arroyo Seco, which is in Monterey, California. So happy to help there. And again, I'll post the names of the wines for you to refer to later. But always ask those questions. And thank you. And Deb, thank you. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to join me next week when I'll be featuring, let's see, next week, Friday, November 3rd at 5 o'clock. I'm here with you every week. Next week, I'm going to be featuring Homage to Fromage. We'll be talking about pairing wine and cheese, my friends. Who doesn't love that? That's one of my favorite topics. And I'm thinking it might be for some of you too. So I hope to see you then. Yeah, and if you think your friends would like the show, I'd appreciate you telling them about it. And again, I can't thank you enough for watching this, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Happy Halloween. Yeah, and enjoy your week. I'll see you next time. Cheers.